Have you ever had that gut feeling that something's just off? That little whisper in the back of your mind telling you that the picture you are seeing is not quite complete? I had that feeling for months. Life with my wife Sarah had become a little too perfect, a little too smooth. The arguments we used to have about little things just stopped. She was sweeter, more accommodating, almost like she was walking on eggshells around me. At first I thought, great, we finally hit that comfortable, easy phase of marriage. But the quiet wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. It all started subtly. Sarah began working late more often. "Big project at the office," she'd say, looking tired but smiling. I didn't question it. She was ambitious, and I was proud of her. Then came the girls' nights. They became a weekly ritual. She'd come home late, smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize, and buzzing with energy. She'd tell me all about the fun they had, the new bar they tried, the funny stories they shared. I listened, I smiled, and I told myself I was being a good, trusting husband. Why would I doubt her? We had built a life together, a home. We had history. But the nagging feeling grew. It was like an itch I couldn't scratch. Little inconsistencies started piling up. She'd mention a movie she saw with her friends, but when I'd ask her about a specific scene a week later, she'd have no memory of it. Or she'd talk about a restaurant but get the name slightly wrong. Small things, trivial things, things you could easily dismiss as a bad memory or a simple mistake. And I did. For a while. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it, that I was letting my own insecurities create problems where there were none. I didn't want to be that husband, the suspicious, jealous type. So I pushed the doubts down. The real turning point, the moment everything began to unravel, was because of something incredibly small, a tiny detail that most people would never even notice. It was a Tuesday morning. I was getting ready for work, and I happened to glance at our shared car parked in the driveway. It had rained heavily the night before, and the car was covered in a thin layer of dust and dried raindrops. But as I looked closer, I noticed something odd on the passenger side door handle. A single, perfect, clean fingerprint, right where a hand would pull the handle to open the door. My heart started pounding. It was just a fingerprint, right? But think about it. It had poured rain. The rest of the car was uniformly dirty. For a single clean spot to exist, someone would have had to touch the car after. The rain had stopped, and before, the morning dew had settled. Sarah had come home late, claiming she took a taxi from her girls' night because she had had a couple of drinks. She said the car hadn't moved from the driveway all night. But that clean fingerprint told a different story. It said someone had been in that car. Someone had opened that door after she was supposedly home. My mind started racing. Who? When? Why lie about taking a taxi? I felt a wave of nausea. That one tiny detail, a clean spot on a dirty car, was like a key turning in a lock I didn't even know was there. All those little inconsistencies, the forgotten movie details, the wrong restaurant names, the strange perfume, they all came rushing back, but this time they weren't just random, unconnected dots. They were starting to form a picture, and I was terrified of what I would see when it was complete. I knew right then, standing in my kitchen and staring out the window, that I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to know the truth. So I decided to do something I never thought I would. I decided to become a detective in my own life. It felt awful, sneaky, like a betrayal of the trust we were supposed to share. But that fingerprint was a crack in the foundation, and I needed to know how deep the damage went. I started paying closer attention, not in an obvious way, but by just observing. I started noting the times she left for work and the times she came home. I made a mental note of the excuses she gave. The big project seemed to be never-ending, and the girls' nights were happening twice a week now. The next clue came from our phone bill. We had a family plan, and I usually just paid it without looking. But this time, driven by that gnawing suspicion, I opened the detailed statement online. I scrolled through the pages of numbers, my heart in my throat, and then I saw it. A single number, called and texted dozens of times, almost every single day. Always during the workday, or late at night, during the time she was supposedly at a work dinner or with her friends. I didn't recognize the number. I quickly saved it and closed the browser, feeling like I'd just committed a crime. My hands were shaking. This was real. This wasn't just my imagination. There was someone else. The calls, the late nights, the vague stories. It was all falling into place. But I needed more. I needed something undeniable. The final piece of the puzzle arrived, as these things often do, through technology. Sarah had always been protective of her phone, but one evening she left it on the kitchen counter while she went to take a long shower. I know. I shouldn't have looked. It was a violation of her privacy. But at that point, I felt like the entire foundation of our marriage was a lie, and I deserved to know the truth. With trembling fingers, I picked up her phone. It was unlocked. My breath caught in my chest. I opened her messages, and there it was. A thread with the same number from the phone bill. The contact was saved under a generic name, Alex Work. I started reading. The messages were sickening. They weren't just flirty. They were intimate. They talked about secret meetings, about the close calls when I almost found out. They made plans. They talked about their future. They even made fun of me. They called me clueless and predictable. Reading those words felt like a physical blow. The air was knocked out of my lungs. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was living a complete, separate existence. And I was the punchline to her secret joke. I saw a message from that very afternoon. Can't wait for our weekend getaway. He has no idea. And below it, a confirmation email for a 2-night stay at a boutique hotel in the mountains, booked for the upcoming weekend. The same weekend, Sarah had told me she was going on a work retreat that was mandatory for her team. Every lie, every excuse, it all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. It all started with that one single clean fingerprint on a dirty car door. That was the loose thread. And when I pulled it, the entire tapestry of lies she had woven just unraveled in my hands. I put the phone back on the counter, exactly where she had left it. I went into the living room and just sat there, in the dark. I didn't feel angry, not yet. I just felt empty, hollowed out. When Sarah came out from her shower, wrapped in a towel, smiling, she asked me what was wrong. She said I looked pale. I just looked at her, at this stranger who looked exactly like my wife, and I couldn't find a single word to say. The truth was laid bare, and our life as we knew it was over. All because I noticed one tiny detail she thought I'd never see. Thank you for listening to my story. It's a painful reminder that sometimes the biggest lies are hidden in the smallest details. If you've ever been in a similar situation, remember to trust your instincts. If you enjoyed this video or found it relatable, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Thanks for watching.